This is what we have in mind for the closing. So we have a duo, we have sort of the two of us at so we're going to take you through a PowerPoint presentation which kind of summarizes what we have agreed or some of the points that we have discussed in the morning session and in the afternoon session. And then we sort of stop quickly to take your views on what are some of the things that you want to emphasize more, or some of the things maybe we are missing. And then we'll go to a sort of a couple of slides that we have on the conclusions, the big conclusions, and also the next steps. So in the morning, in the concluding remarks, there were a number of, we highlighted a number of important points that is summarized here. Capacity and research, which was very much emphasized by Jean Labelle. We also heard from Shamshad, which was a very good point on the system approach, and that it's good data sets are not only about numbers, but about changing mindsets and the link to policies, and how important it is for us to make sure that we connect those dots together. We also heard about the multifaceted benefits, that no paper, no registration, no rights, and CRVS is about good governance as much as good data sets. We heard from Selina about the gender-inclusive approach to eliminate poverty, empower women, achieve peace. So it's sort of a system-wide approach to gender. And CRVS, of course, important part and important platform for that. And then from Josie, we heard a lot about the importance from her experience on the ground about a partnership and the importance of partnership, and particularly in their case, she made a very strong case of partnership. So then we had on the high-level panel, we had our distinguished speakers on. Overall, we heard a lot, of course, from Montasser himself, also on the sort of the call for a gender transformative agenda, and we must ensure that the global CRVS agenda considers women, and we must actively involve the point of view of women in the CRVS policy design and challenge gender biases in statistical collection. We talked, it was a very good point that came up about prioritization. I think also Francesca mentioned that, the importance of the CRVS, and whether, how are the countries at the country level, but also at the regional and the global level, this is prioritized. And then funding and finances, I'm so glad to see that got the attention that it's got, because without funding and financing and budgeting, we won't be able to do the implementation. So we had very good discussions and from all our high-level panels on that. And partnership and collaboration and strong CRVS systems requires participation of all government parts and of course beyond just the statistical office, and we need to plan for this integration. The balancing question was very good, and got a lot of discussions around that we need to strike a balance between investing in household surveys, CRVS, as well as the balance between within the CRVS system between birth, marriage, divorce, and death. So balance is another conclusion that we want to take from our discussions at the high-level panel. And then in the afternoon, we had the two sessions. We had the research and strategy session, and then we had the planning and implementation. On the research side, we saw that there was very clear call for, although there's been a lot of research done, but there are research gaps and there are knowledge gaps. There are lots of things we don't know. Lots of things we don't know. And then CRVS, that is a multidimensional issue requiring coordination among many national stakeholders, and closing gaps in disaggregated data, it was very much emphasized. And building the business case, I thought that was really great, and Myra particularly emphasized that, but I think all of us in some ways said that on our own words, that we need to build a case for benefits of CRVS, and particularly CRVS-gender. And without that, we cannot really get the governments and the and the planners and the decision makers behind this program without knowing the value of that. And then we just heard the planning and implementation. We heard from different groups about partnerships, about better integrating the different work together, improving coordination, and of course a lot of opportunities and solutions that was offered. So that was basically, Irina, that was what I was going to say about the morning session, but maybe we stop for a second and just sort of see, is there anything that you think we have missed from this and that you wanted to bring up both from the morning session and also from the afternoon session that is really stuck with you, but you don't feel like it's being captured in our summary? So we stop here to hear your interventions, and then we continue.
How are your energy levels?
That silence means we got everything right. Is there something that you think we should, sort of move the needle more up? And Francesca, you're about to say something.
Well, thank you.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Shaida. Excellent summary, and Irina. I was just thinking maybe if we want to strengthen a little bit more the message on how we ensure the financing and how we need to shift a little bit the conversation around how both at the national level and the global level, how we mobilize resources using the argument that this is not just a data source. So shifting a little bit the conversation away from purely the statistical and data community and engaging more actively and more strongly with the other actors, the government, the open government people, and even in the UN, the public administration people. And so trying to bridge that. Excellent. I don't know how I would phrase it, but maybe you have some ideas. Yeah.
No, that's excellent. That's a very good point. Yes, please come to the microphone and tell us what we're missing or we need to emphasize more.
Sorry, I think this also what Jonathan asked for what are the other cases, and I thought this was important. Border crossing, that is one, where CRVS has a big role to play in border crossing. And border crossing is related to statelessness, where again the gender issue, it's the women and the children who are suffering. So I think if we take border crossing as another use case, then I think we are able to incorporate that part of the discussion. Thank you.
Good. That's a very good use case. Yes, please.
My name is Bunchai Kisanayotin from Thailand, but I represent the Asian e-health information network. I would to add something that I think is missing is that the perspective from the healthcare. We're talking about a lot about birth, death, and something like that. And I would like to add about we're talking about the financing motivation to complete the CRVS. Actually, in Thailand, one experience is very crucial is that we have universal healthcare coverage. Before the registration for the birth registration, it did not quite complete. But after the incentive with the universal healthcare coverage, everyone are covered. So once they deliver the child, they rush to the registration office to get the identification number, which will be cover all the health care of mother and child. So another thing that I think is a missing, it's quite mixing concept between ID and the civil registration. I really like the report from the World Bank, the ID&D integration approach, that they differentiate the registration into two categories: the functional registration and foundational registration. CRVS is the foundational, and every fintech, financing, immunization, healthcare, all of this is the functional. And the model that they show about how we can interoperable all of these registration using some kind of the identity. It's very interesting. That was my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll make sure we include that. I think interoperability and using the ID as the mechanism for that interoperability is key. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. Anina Warson from Plan International. Thank you for a fantastic day and a great agenda. A lot of the focus today has been obviously on girls and women, and I think it's just good to also take a pause and think about the impacts and effects, obviously, on boys and men, both from a research perspective when we're thinking about research questions and framing those questions. When we look at gender, obviously, there's a lot of focus on girls and women, but how do we look at that on both sides? And also in the implementation, how do we engage boys and men, from a participatory perspective to ensure that our interventions respond and include them in the interventions as well? Thank you.
Very good. Good. We won't forget that role of men and boys. Yes. Anything else? Good. Oh yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Anir Chaudhary. I'm Policy Advisor to the Access to Information Program, the Prime Minister's Office, Bangladesh. Two things I'd like to point out. I mean, we have had a fantastic series of discussions, debates, perspectives. As I go to these conferences, I mean, I've been to several SCAP ones on CRVS. One thing that seems to be missing is a deeper dive into maybe a success story or a failure story. Recently, we did a workshop in Bangladesh in December, where we actually identified a few case studies. It was about 20 countries working on public service innovations. And we did a number of case studies and did a deeper dive into why those worked, why things didn't work, how it worked, and what different countries would do to translate those to their context. So it was maybe a half a day worth of exploration. But we very deeply understood what worked, what didn't, why it did, and how it would translate to another context. Maybe something like that would be very useful. I don't know if the innovation labs in the next 2 days would actually walk us through that.
Probably yes.
Probably
Some
yes.
of them, yes.
So that's one thing I think in future we could potentially consider, because we had a quite a successful exploration of that. Second thing is and we discussed this in SCAP recently as well, elevating the perspectives of CRVS and the discussion of CRVS to the level of Davos. So 2030 is discussed at that level. Fourth Industrial Revolution is being discussed at that level. Why not CRVS? It's equally important. So bringing it to that, so maybe Justin Trudeau could go there, maybe Michael Bloomberg could go there. So a discussion on CRVS could be elevated to that level. Yeah. Just wanted to point out those two things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. That would be lovely to have CRVS as a special topic in Davos. But for that, we have to show some value, or we have to have more evidence on the value of CRVS, of course, and maybe some of the deep dives. So, looking around the room, no other interventions. So we will, please.
Thank you very much, Anshu Banerjee from WHO. I was wondering whether we could have a short list of a number of key issues that we could keep in mind when we do the innovation labs. So to ensure that during the innovation labs, we actually look at the issue of gender and make sure that during the discussions that's included.
I think that this would be totally possible, and it's a good idea. So what we will do, we will put this together on a maybe short PowerPoint, and we will circulate it to the heads of innovation labs so that you can use it during the work with your groups. Good idea.
Okay, so we now move to the last two slides, and Irina, over to you on in conclusion and what's next.
Yes, actually today, as you could see, we have convened civil registrars, statisticians, academia, development experts and gender experts to discuss the critical subjects of the 2030 agenda, which is CRVS and gender. And while recognizing the critical role that CRVS plays in the SDGs, I think that one of the things which was emphasized was the role of CRVS not only in monitoring the SDGs, but also in the implementation of the SDGs. And I guess this was stressed by some of our speakers, like Francesca and Haishan as well, in the lives of women and girls, and also within the legal framework and the human rights framework. We have heard from governments and partners, from the UN agencies and other international agencies, from civil society organizations about the support, the commitments, and the plans they have to bring this forward and to help actually build sustainable CRVS systems from which we can generate real-time, permanent data which we can use into planning and implementation of programs to improve the lives of all, which is the ultimate goal, I guess, of the 2030 agenda. And we reviewed together the challenges and opportunities to make progress on CRVS and gender. And we should take some steps forward, actually. We should not conclude the meeting with that, but we also should take some action. And I'd like to assure you that we will bring the results of this meeting to the Innovation Conference tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, Shaida will be on a panel on gender and emergencies, and she will present the conclusion of this meeting today. But also we are going to bring it next week to a side event to the UN Statistical Commission, and we have proposed and hope we are going to be successful to have a panel at the UN World Data Forum on Leave No One Behind agenda. I'm looking here at Francesca, and I do hope that, and the committee, obviously, not only you. I would like to assure you that the Center of Excellence for CRVS Systems will continue to offer opportunities and a forum for discussion on the subject. We will continue to convene stakeholders, shape the future of the agenda, but also support the governments and the partners in implementing actually this agenda at country and global and regional level. And as a conclusion, obviously, we will share the outcome document with all of you, and we're going to highlight the main discussion points and the sessions today, the finding and the recommendations. So that are, in short, the plans.
And Irina, we hope that at some periodically you'll bring us all back together to take a stock of what has been achieved and maybe celebrate more and work less.
We do hope that there will be reasons for celebration, you know, with so many heavy plans and so many commitments around the table. And also, you know, the center will be happy to host you here in Ottawa and maybe in some of our regional offices. I don't know. Ottawa is kind with us and the weather is very nice this time. Definitely, we will continue to, you know, convene and foster the discussion. I think this is one of our role and it falls within our mandate. So I think we can count on us to continue that discussion. And I'd like to thank you all on behalf of the Center of Excellence. I let Montasser speak on that, for coming here today and contributing to this discussion. And I'm looking forward to continue the conversation on the margin of the Innovation Conference and welcome you here tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you all.
So it's all the juicy parts have already been said by Irina and Shaida. Nothing else for me except housekeeping. But okay, I'm not complaining. It's been a wonderful day. But I think maybe my point, the only substantive point I would say is that this is really, I'm hoping that this is really the start of a conversation, a collective conversation. I know many of us talk to each other sideways, individually, bilaterally, but I think having this space for a collective discussion or a common discussion is a privilege we don't all have all the time. So I think it's really great to see this conversation starting here. I have three housekeeping points. One is the evaluation. There is an evaluation form that will be circulated to you via email. Please fill it and add your comments to it so we can benefit from your feedback for future events or future convenings. Also, the Innovations Conference starts tomorrow. For those of you who are not able to join us in person, it is good. You can access the webcast on the website, on the conference website. So please look for that if you're not able to join us in person. For those who are here today, but also continuing with us tomorrow for the conference, tomorrow is a different separate registration for the conference, which will be open from 8 to 9 in the morning. So please come a little bit early to get your new badges for the conference. I will just say it has been a tremendous day for us. I hope it has been a fruitful day for you. And we will hopefully see most of you tomorrow or hear from you online. Safe travels if you're traveling, and see you tomorrow, and have a nice evening if you're staying in Ottawa. Thank you very much.